All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we're making up plays. We're talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.
Whoa, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Loose Lugs. As you can see, totally different folks tonight. Normally we talk NASCAR. There will be none of that tonight. There's nothing to talk about. Nothing. So instead, let's wrap up some college football. Tonight we have Tony Hollins, who's a huge guy for Michigan State, does all the guru stuff for them. I also see your cat in the background. He's going to have some input. I know it. Yep. And we have Ray Cruz, who does the preview show for ASAP on Saturday mornings. Welcome, guys. Glad we could do this.
Oh, yes. This is good. Be a good time. A lot of breaking news, too, in college football.
Yeah, there is a lot of big news.
Going crazy right now.
Yeah.
Let's open it up with the OU situation. Obviously, unless you woke up from a coma in the last couple of days, Lincoln Riley is heading to USC. He is taking a lot of his staff with him, I hear. Quite a few. And so there's going to be a lot of vacancies at Oklahoma. What do you guys think is brewing? Do you think they're going to go with a current SEC head coach? Do you think they're going to dive into the bucket? Where are you at?
I don't really know as far as the coaching, because I mean, if you look at what Florida did, Florida immediately swooped in and grabbed Napier from Louisiana, and he was probably one of your biggest names. I guess another name that I could maybe see as far as a big name that would put him back in the SEC, and he's one of those, he's a player's coach and everybody loves him and everybody loves his attitude. I could easily see Ed Orgeron moving right in there. I know, and it's one of those, I'm trying to read, to be honest with you. I don't. Who's listening to country music? Somebody's country music is going crazy right now.
That's my wife in the background.
There we go. But yeah, I can't really think of a big name other than Ed, maybe, and I feel like Ed is really kind of a reach. Like I said, mainly for personality. He's a player's coach. He's entertained and loved everybody when he was at LSU. I mean, the Go Tigers is probably one of the biggest things you're forever going to know Ed Orgeron for. I could see them stealing an SEC coach because Oklahoma is going to be moving into the SEC. They kind of want to have that familiarity. They want to have that toughness. They want to have that, that background going into it, especially with the pedigree that Oklahoma has carried for so many years as far as being a contender goes. I mean, they almost need to get an SEC coach. Who, I don't know, but they need one.
I have someone in mind, and it'll be Mark Stoops. Obviously, he's familiar with the program. His brother was the head coach before Lincoln. I feel like they need a coach who is offensive and defensive minded. Lincoln was good for progressing towards the Big 12 style, but with them gearing up to go to the SEC in just, 3 years, I think they need to find a coach that can coach both, not just get them. I mean, this Oklahoma team, if they joined the West this year, wouldn't win half their conference games. And I think the staff and the athletic director noticed the same things that we're saying. And maybe it was more of a, Lincoln, we appreciate what you've done, but maybe it's time you found an upgrade. We're going to do the same, not just Lincoln wanting to coach somewhere else. What do you think, Ray?
This is what I got. I've been looking up the coaching searches because I'm doing my college football. I'm a college breakdown host on Saturday mornings from 9 to 12. Josh Heupel's name has come up. He's a former Oklahoma Sooner quarterback. His name is brought up. Brent Venables, the Clemson defensive coordinator, he's due for a head coaching job. He's been assistant coach for a while, but he was also Mark Stoops' defense coordinator at one time before Dabo Swinney took him away. So that's another clue there. Mario Cristobal out of Oregon, his name's been mentioned into it. So we got that. David Archidell, Baylor head coach. How about Mark Stoops? You know,
That's what I
Kentucky
said,
head
Mark
coach.
Stoops. Yeah.
And then you got Luke Finkel, the Cincinnati head coach. So
I would definitely agree that Fickle's probably going to come up a good bit. A guy that I don't see fitting is Venables. And I know some would probably disagree, but he's a defensive-minded guy. I think you need to bring in a management coach here, not an offensive guy or a defensive guy. Going to the SEC, I mean, you've got to have both. You can't be an incomplete team and make it in the SEC on either side, East or West. So to me, a likely candidate would be a guy, even Ed Orgeron. I mean, I don't think he's the right guy for this job, but his style of coaching would probably fit what Oklahoma had if he didn't have the baggage. I don't like Ed as a coach personally. I think he's not focused on his job at times, and so he's not the right guy for me. But I'm not hiring anybody either. It's not my job.
yeah, Ed Orgeron, he's already came out and said he doesn't want to do another coaching job. So he's actually going to retire. He wants to go and see his son play more. And that's something he brought out at the LSU. That's why he went on. He did an agreement with LSU and stuff like that. He said the LSU was his dream job, and he did it. He provided a national championship there to go into a bowl game this year after that upset win over Texas A&M this past weekend. So he gets one more game to coach, and I think he's done. I mean, he's like over 62 years old. I think it's time for him to, do it. And now to answer your question about Brent Venables, Dave Clutchcliffe might not be a great head coach at Duke University, but he's also a great offensive mind. And them two could pair up to bring Oklahoma up with the offensive side and the defensive side. So you can't discredit Venables out of the deal. You can't, Dave Clutchcliffe could be in there too because everybody likes him. He gets some good recruits, and if he's at a great university, so that Duke, he could bring in these next recruits because look at what he did. He did with Eli Manning and Ole Miss. So
What's up, Coach Dante? I would even, throw some NFL guys in there. Somebody said Cliff Kingsbury is probably not interested, but it's a possible. He's not the only guy I would throw into that hat. I mean, there's coordinators. Mel Tucker, who's currently at Michigan State, he was a defensive coordinator in the NFL for a long time before he got back to college, and there's a few out there that I think could really. I can't think of his name, but the Cowboys offensive coordinator.
Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. I think he's a guy, or Byron Leftwich, who they understand the playbooks and what they do for a team. They might be options by the end of this, but maybe far reaches for options. I know if I was hiring someone as high profile as a job for Oklahoma, I want somebody that can recruit now, not in 3 years.
Yeah, and I heard the Cliff Kingsbury thing, and I mean I get it if he's looking at it from a money standpoint, but I also look at it where kind of Cliff has been. Cliff did decent at the collegiate level. He got a head coaching job, and he started to build the Cardinals up. Now, if this was one of those, he's like, his third, fourth year in, and he's like still struggling, or they're barely making 500, or they're not really competing, then I can kind of see, okay, well, the Cardinals are about to move on from Cliff. Cliff's kind of done there. Maybe he'll go back to the collegiate level, kind of see how he's doing, and go from there. So I don't see him going from you have a decent franchise with players that you've obtained since him being there. He got DeAndre Hopkins, he got Kyler Murray, you have AJ Green, you've built a very good defense, you have one of the best safeties in the league. I don't see him giving all of that up to go back to a collegiate level to basically then start over and completely rebuild. Not really completely rebuild a program, but I mean to basically go from, okay, who's going to be the quarterback? Because Spencer Rattler already said he's leaving.
He's gone.
Do they commit to Caleb Williams? Do they not? What do they really do and go from there? And for Cliff, I think he's put too much into Arizona to just be like, yeah, I'm out. I'm just going to leave.
Totally. And hey, Nate, nice to have you. Thanks for joining.
So I just received some breaking news actually. Clemson's defensive coordinator is rumored to be Oklahoma's new head coach.
I read that earlier, and I don't know that I would say anything close to confirming because Venables has a buyout, and Clemson's not usually big on doing buyouts for not head coaches.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that he may not be the guy. It's definitely possible. I see it, but I think his buyout is almost as much as Dabo's, and
I think honestly, I would probably say he has the best shot. I wouldn't confirm anything, but I would say he has the best shot at it.
he's a good coach. I definitely like Brent Venables. We were just talking about that they may look for someone that is an established head coach. I suggested Mark Stoops. He can do well with what he has instead of trying to bring in, 5-star talent and build from the bottom up. He's done great with what he's had at Kentucky over the years. And his brother was the coach. He's coached there as well. Let's transition to the LSU job. That one is still on fire. They keep having candidates that fall through. So go ahead, Nate. Who do you think LSU might be in the market for, and who's actually going to be the guy?
I'm gonna, to tell you the truth, I'm gonna go actually out in the NFL direction. I think Pete Carroll might lose his job out in Seattle and go to LSU.
That'd be a hell of a catch.
Yeah, I honestly, what you kind of said, Chris, and I've seen a lot of people kind of theorize it as my cat drops stuff. Freaking cats, man. I could kind of see Mel Tucker leaving Michigan State. And I say that mainly because while, yes, he reestablished Michigan State in pretty timely manner, what better way for him to go back to the SEC? He studied under Nick Saban. He finally left the NFL, came back into the collegiate level, turned Michigan State around. They beat Michigan, out of one of their big wins as far as this year goes. Now they laid an egg when it came to facing Ohio State, but what better way for Mel Tucker to kind of reestablish himself going to a perennial program like LSU, because LSU is going to always come with the spotlights. LSU to me kind of reminds me of like the college footballs, like Dallas Cowboys. Like everybody's almost always looking at LSU, good or bad. LSU is almost always in the topic of conversation. So what better way to put your name out there to show, hey, I'm going to take LSU, I'm going to turn it around, and I'm going to at least make them competitive. They may not necessarily go in and stomp Bama every single year. Hardly anybody ever does. But what better way to be like, yeah, I'm going to reestablish myself in the SEC and rebuild this program.
I think Mel Tucker signed a 10-year extension recently with Michigan State, which would take him off the board. I could be wrong.
You're muted, Ray.
Ray.
You're still muted.
You're still muted, buddy.
Yeah, he signed a 10-year deal worth $96 million guaranteed all the way through. He's already got the money for that. It's a $2.5 million buyout. Plus, if he goes to a top 10 school, and like an SEC school, it's additional $2.5 million on top of that. So that's a $5 million buyout for him out of that new contract. So I don't think he's going anywhere. But you're talking about LSU coaches. One name that nobody has really mentioned, even though he's suing the NFL right now, is John Gruden.
I think that would be hard to get.
But I'm gonna tell you, they offered Lincoln Riley an 8-year deal, $96 million contract. Lincoln Riley turned that down. Guess what? You can turn that around and do a 10-year deal over $100 million for John Gruden. He'll take that.
Yeah, I did hear about that, and I could kind of see it because I could see John not really like reestablish himself to like get back into the NFL. I don't think that's going to happen. But I could see John doing it like, okay, well, if I can't be in the NFL anymore, I'm going to take my talents to college and see how well I do there as a collegiate coach.
So I like this question over here. Who should Virginia Tech hire? I'm actually going to say that Jamie Chadwell is probably out of reach. Going to LSU, I think he's a candidate. I'm not going to say he's number one. I think they're aiming too high. I know that Dabo was talked about as being a candidate. I don't see that happening. But Chadwell would be a good fit because he has a very unique offensive system. They've done exceptional things with players that most people would have passed on. So I think Chadwell's a candidate. My home run throw for LSU was actually to pull somebody like, I can't even think of his name, but it's the offensive coordinator right now for Alabama. He was the Texans GM.
Bill O'Brien.
Bill
Yeah,
O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien. Mhm.
But that's really fell apart with Alabama's offense struggling. I thought for a while he was the guy because they shuffle through coaches all the time, and the next one up coaching style at Bama. But I think LSU, if Venables goes to Oklahoma, if he's the guy, maybe Dabo takes some weird second look at LSU and says, well, my coaching staff's gone. The guy that's been with me forever is gone. Maybe I take a chance. I'm not saying it happens. I'm saying it's possible. Yeah.
So I wanted to address a comment real quick. I don't see John getting an NFL job because of what happened with the Raiders.
I think he's done coaching.
I think he's going college route too, but I don't see it being LSU.
Yeah,
I don't think
it's going to be a head coach
right
even
now.
for that big of a deal. I think it might be an assistant coach or something. Maybe he goes over to Alabama.
I don't think so because I don't think Nick Saban would tolerate that, and I think
that's true
because Nick Saban's a very strong personality and John Gruden's a very strong personality. You try to put those two together, and that is not going to end well. And to be honest, I don't think any program, even LSU, because think about it, if you hire John Gruden, especially for a lot of these kids, they grow up, they want to be in the NFL. A lot of them have watched the NFL growing up. You bring a guy with that kind of negative stigma into your locker room, or even there at all, that's going to hurt your chances for recruitment. Because I don't know what kind of ties are going to be with that. Am I going to experience that? What kind of shenanigans are going to get thrown in there if we go into this? And John is any part. Doesn't matter if he's the offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, head coach. Doesn't matter. Any program that's going to do that is going to lose any type of credibility that they have, and it's going to be more detrimental than it would be positive.
Do you think a smaller school might take that shot?
Maybe just because it would be a big name, but I think any type of small school that wants to have a chance, it would be more detrimental than what it would be worth positively.
I mean, look at Kansas taking Les Miles. That didn't last long, and that was less circumstances. John Gruden's got a laundry list of problems coming with him.
Yeah.
And also, you got to look at too. Mel Tucker and Luke Fickell and James Franklin all took their names out of coaching search.
Yeah.
Just let y'all know that. So they were staying at their main school. Yeah. James Franklin's a extension with Penn State that takes him all the way out to 2026. And Luke Fickell he said he's happy at Cincinnati. So because Cincinnati's moving to the Pac-12. So I mean they're gonna be in a Power 5 conference. So
I figured he'd be an LSU candidate for sure.
Well, here's another name that could you guys see going to LSU? Do you think Lane Kiffin would leave Ole Miss to go?
I'll tell you real quick about Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's watching one job, and that's Manny Diaz's coaching job at University of Miami. He likes it down in South Florida. He's already came out and said that his only job that will take him away from Ole Miss is if Manny Diaz is fired at Miami, take that job down in Miami.
Which could happen. Manny Diaz is on a leash right now.
Mm-hmm. How about Mark Stoops going from Kentucky to LSU?
I see that would work too.
Yeah. Yeah, because you think about it, Kentucky's really never known for a big football program. This year they did decent. They've been better than what I've known them to be in the last few years, at least on the football side. So, yeah, that would be definitely a next step up for Mark as far as proving, hey, I can be a really good coach. Watch me take this program and turn it around.
Now, LSU did wait to see what Lincoln Riley was doing. I think that was a mistake because they had Bill Napier right there in their backyard.
Yep.
So, that's one thing. He was the second on the list, and when Riley spun him around, and all of a sudden Florida fired their head coach and swept in and take Bill Napier. I think Bill Napier is a good hire for Florida, And it could have been a good hire for LSU because he would have had all them Louisiana recruits staying home.
Yep.
Sorry, Tony, I'm laughing at your cat.
Yeah, that's the second one. I have a third. He's down in the kitchen currently.
I don't let mine in here. They will chew up all the cords in here like bad.
Yeah.
Duke, that's another interesting one. Duke will be looking for a new head coach. I have a really good hunch on Duke's next head coach, but I'll let you guys go first.
Yeah. So I'll let the North Carolina boy, since he's a Tar Heels fan, say who he thinks is going to get the Duke spot.
Well, the only name that really got Duke going in the past few years, was Steve Spurrier. And after that, all them coaches come in and hasn't done anything. School is a trash school. I mean, their facilities, they don't upgrade their facilities none. Their football stadium is one of the worst football stadiums I've ever been in.
Yep.
And they don't upgrade that. I mean, the restrooms, they have to bring porta potties in if the crowd gets over 20,000, gets over to the maximum of the stadium. They don't have enough restrooms there. So, and the football facilities, and then if you look at it, they maintain the basketball facilities, even though they play in a high school gym, I'll call it, in Cameron Indoor Stadium. And they added, a trophy room, stuff like that. But still, they cater to they cater to the basketball program. The football don't put no money into it. The only name that I don't see a top tier name coming, it's gonna be a guy that's looking to make his name available to a top tier program. It's gonna be Duke and Vanderbilt are a school to say if you want to get into coaching, you go there. If you do good, you're gonna get a top tier. You're gonna look at a top tier. I mean, Duke's always gonna be a basketball program. Carolina's gonna be turning and mix with Mac Brown right now. So, I mean, they turn it back into a football, be balanced out like Florida, like these other schools are trying to be now, a football program. So, if you look at Duke right now, I mean, that program is so much in the disarray. Even though if you talk to some of the Duke fans, Caulfield made it to where it needs to be, but he approved it and then he de-approved it. He went up, he got good years, and now it's been flatlined the last 3 or 4 years. And the only problem with the Duke program is they don't go after a Power 5 teams to play. They go after the weak teams to play at the beginning, and then they try to mix in with the ACC. So if they don't get a Power 5 school, they go after the lower tier Power 5 schools like Northwestern. That school right there, didn't help them out in the ACC. They went 0-10 in the ACC this year. Last year, I think they maybe won 2 games in the ACC last year. So, I mean, if you look at Duke right now, Duke's in a disarray, and it's going to be a lot of notions. And you don't see Steve Spurrier walking back through that door anytime soon.
No, I actually think Jim Chaney, who's with the Saints right now, I think he's a top candidate for Duke, or will be. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy. He's a great offensive mind. He used to roll everywhere that Sam Pittman did, who's now the coach at Arkansas. He's a good football hire. He would bring in some recruits that could give Duke a boost. I mean, like you said, it's a basketball school just like Kentucky. But I think the expectations are to at least be in the games inside their division, and they haven't been. They had a few years that were good, but this year was bad. So I say Jim Chaney. You could possibly throw guys like Jeff Monken in there, but I think they're going to go for more of a name to bring in some recruits like Chaney.
Yeah, but see, one thing about Duke, and I'm sorry to break in other people. One thing about Duke is they got to recruit against North Carolina State. They got to recruit against North Carolina. They're going to have to recruit now against Wake Forest because Caldwell is making his name known in the state of North Carolina. And then the thing about the state of North Carolina, if you don't get the recruits out of Charlotte, your football team is not going to be good in North Carolina. Right. That's where all the football talent is brewed, right in Charlotte, Mecklenburg area. It's a big county. They got a high school called Advanced High School up there, who produces a lot of NFL talent players. So, and they also got the Charlotte Academy, who produces way enough. So Duke's gonna have to find a way to get up in Charlotte to get players to come down, or else Duke's gonna have to recruit nationally. And Duke recruiting nationally is not a way to go because you're not gonna compete against anybody. And the problem with Duke recruiting people in North Carolina is because North Carolina is overpopulated with the University of North Carolina fans and some NC State fans and Wake Forest fans. Duke was always considered a New York kind of school in the state of North Carolina. So, I mean, they could probably go up to New Jersey and pull some of their players in New York, because they want to come to Duke. But, state of North Carolina, you're going to have inject yourself into the get in. What Mac Brown came out and he said, if you win the state of North Carolina recruiting, you're going to win some of the games in the state of North Carolina between the universities. And that's what Mac Brown has done. So
I'm going to change. So I have something to say that's changing the subject a little bit. Going a little bit of a homer thing here, but Washington, I saw a theory rumor going out there take that BYU's head coach is being a candidate for Washington's coaching job. Do you see that happening?
I see that as a bad move if he does.
Yeah, because really, I mean, because I kind of look at this the same way that I look at the Lincoln Riley thing. I think the Lincoln Riley thing is actually a good move for a couple different reasons. Because now, look at what Lincoln basically got handed from Bob Stoops when he left. He got handed a program that had basically always been in some type of contention from basically 1999 to 2016 when he left. Lincoln got handed the keys to basically an already set up program. He just had to keep running and recruit the right people. Now he's going to a place where he's going to have to rebuild and prove whether or not he is actually that good of a coach or not. I would kind of say the same thing for the BYU head coach. I mean, you're going from now, you're not going to be an independent school anymore. You're going to go into the Big 12. So really, what better way to prove, yes, I can coach. Yes, this program can hang with the best of the best as far as being in a Power 5 conference, facing, Power 5 schools. I mean, you can go to Washington and be in the Pac-12, which to me, the Pac-12 isn't bad. It's kind of hit and miss, but I mean, if you really want to kind of get your feet wet as far as being, facing Power 5 schools, the Big 12 is not a bad place to start because the Big 12 is not really known for defenses. Oklahoma almost always has terrible defense. West Virginia almost always has a terrible defense. Texas, Iowa State. Really, the only good team that ever has a semi-decent defense in the Big 12 is Baylor. And even then, that's really like stretching it. And that's only against other Big 12 teams. So, I mean, to me, I would say stay at BYU and prove yourself as you're coming into the Big 12. But that's just me.
Brian Kelly is the guy that is the leading candidate right now from Notre Dame to be the coach at LSU. That just came out.
Yeah, that actually would be a pretty decent name.
He's a good coach. They don't knock it dead recruiting up there in Indiana, surrounded by the Big Ten. But they do well with what they have, and they push out tight ends like nobody.
Tight ends and offensive linemen.
Yes, especially guards and tackles. Oh,
yes. Zach Martin was a phenomenal pickup for the Dallas Cowboys. I am so glad they picked him over Johnny Manziel. So glad.
So let's transition from talking about head coaching jobs because there's a lot of those. There's going to be more before we're done. To where you guys see tomorrow's playoff rankings being. I think it's unanimous who's number one. It's going to be Georgia. But where do you have them lined up behind them?
I'll be honest. I mean, after watching this weekend, and all of my Bama fans are going to hate me for this, I'm going to put Bama at 3 because they struggled against Auburn. And I mean, I'm not even saying like they struggled. I mean, they were struggling against a backup walk-on quarterback that was basically at 50%. The dude could barely walk throughout the entire game. And you had to take it to 4 overtimes to even get to the point where you win. I get it. It's the SEC. It's the Iron Bowl. It's Auburn. Auburn almost always plays their best. But you couldn't beat a banged-up second-string freshman quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, really? No. Like, to me, Bama's 3. I only put Bama at 3 because I really don't even want to put them at 2. I don't even really want to put Michigan at 2, to be honest with you. But, I mean, Michigan beat Ohio State. I mean, looking at, where Ohio State was, the fact that Michigan did run the ball for over 250 yards against them, I mean, basically shut down Ohio State's offense. That says a lot to Michigan, and the fact that they finally beat them for the first time in 10 years. And then at 4, I mean, I would have to just give it to Cincinnati. I give it to Cincinnati over Oklahoma State purely because I kind of the same thing. I don't see enough from Oklahoma State to be like, yes, they deserve to be in the playoffs. I don't really see the same from Cincinnati, but I also have to give Cincinnati credit. They're like one of the only undefeated teams left, other than Georgia. They're the one of two teams left, so that does have to say something about them actually going into the college football playoffs. So I would say Georgia, Michigan, Bama, and Cincy as my top four.
Do you have Oklahoma State at 5?
Yes, right on the outside.
We're okay then. Go ahead, Nate. What you got?
So I have two answers to this. One is my top 5, top 4, and then the other is what I think is going to happen. And I'll start with what I think is going to happen first. I think Georgia is going to be number 1, and I think Alabama is going to be number 2. Number 3 will be Michigan, and number 4 will be Cincinnati. In that order. My answer is a bit different, though. And Georgia at number 1, I think, is unanimous. If you don't have Georgia at 1, it just proves you don't watch college football. I mean, let's just say that. Cincinnati at 2. Number 3, I'm going to have to go with Michigan. Because of their big win big win a few days ago. Number 4 and 5 are two teams that I keep going back and forth on, and that's Oklahoma State and Notre Dame. I don't even have Alabama up there at the top 4. I have them at number 6.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it because I don't know. The only reason I wouldn't put Notre Dame up there is purely because of Notre Dame's past when it comes to these type of moments. Like Notre Dame think about it. Notre Dame obliterates, kind of the bottom tier ACC teams throughout most of the year. They'll beat up on some of the other independents, and I mean that's kind of about it for Notre Dame. So that's the only reason I'm hesitant with Notre Dame. I do see the Big 12 kind of coming in there. Stop it, Freddie. Stop it. Stop it. Just Freddie, no. Freddie, no. This is Bama struggling against, like I said, a second string banged up quarterback is like him going up against Danny Dimes. Like that is garbage. That is unacceptable. Like even for Bama not being the top perennial team that they almost always are 90% of the time, you almost lost two unranked teams in your own conference, and you almost lost, and you barely beat the dude that's crippled in 4 overtimes. No. There, if anything, like I said, my respect for Bama went down just because of that. Now, if they dominated, okay, I can't, as much as I would want to hate on Bama, I'd have to keep them at 2, but I can't. I just can't.
Just remember, Alabama did lose to Texas A&M when they were unranked.
Yep.
Hey, Freddie, I don't see you. You can be on the show if you want to. I don't see you, though.
Yeah, a win is a win. Okay. Okay. And you talk about Cowboys fans being delusional. Okay.
Go ahead, Ray. What you got?
Well, mine is I got Alabama at number 3. I got Cincinnati at number 4. I have Michigan at number 2, and I have Georgia at number 1.
Who's number 5?
My number 5 is Oklahoma State.
Okay. Freddie's going to be mad at me again. Georgia, obviously, number 1. I have Michigan at 2. I don't see how you can't have them at 2 if you put Ohio State at 2 after they beat Michigan State. It's only fair. 3, I have Cincinnati. And it's not because they're beating great teams. It's that they're actually winning the games they're supposed to win. Alabama at 4. And that's a stretch for me. I hate to be that way towards Bama. They're not winning the games the way they usually do, and that should set some alarms off. It really should. Going into this Georgia game, I mean, find a weakness for Georgia.
Well,
on that defense.
Let me stop you on that one about Georgia. Nobody this year has blocked their nose tackle, Davis. They double team Davis. Double team has beaten double teams. And I'm gonna tell you what, the one thing that Bryce Young has a problem with is with a team that can rush up the middle. And guess what? Davis can rush up that middle anytime he wants to because ain't nobody on Alabama's offensive line going to be able to stop him. Because if you look what Auburn did to him, that guy single-handedly is going to have to take 3 guys. You're going to have to chip him down. And the question is, you can't chip a nose tackle.
No, if Davis has said several times, if there's 2 on me, somebody's free. He enjoys the double teams. Throw the running back in there, put 3 on him.
But especially considering what was it, Bama's right tackle, like they had 1 tackle starting, then he got benched, and then they brought the original guy that started at right tackle back in, and then he wasn't doing any better either. So that right side, Georgia may take advantage of that right side too, which
they saw the pressure that they put on Bryce Young and saw the throws that he made, and they're going to have pressure all game. I don't want to talk too much about that. I'm a Georgia fan. I have to stay biased. But I'm ready for Saturday. 5, I do have Oklahoma State and Notre Dame at 6. And I'm just going to throw it out there ahead of time. Notre Dame, even if there's upset after upset, I don't see them getting in. They don't play a conference championship game. They have to watch. And when you just sit and watch, you get jumped when somebody else wins. That's how it works. They don't have anything to prove because they don't play Saturday. So I think even if Michigan loses, even if Cincinnati loses, I think the committee will still find someone to be there for them.
Yeah. Now, here's my question. Say for whatever reason, Bama does the unthinkable and upsets Georgia. I know. Or, sorry, no, not upsets Georgia. If Georgia beats Alabama, do you think that people are still going to clamor for Bama to be in the playoffs with 2 losses?
No way.
Nope.
Alabama's got to win this weekend. This weekend right here will take Bama out. If Alabama beats Georgia, Georgia and Alabama will be in the playoffs. That's the only way Alabama will stay in this playoff race if they can beat Georgia. And I don't see them beating Georgia because they don't have a backup quarterback who they can take out the starting quarterback to beat Georgia. The last 2 times they beat Georgia, they had to take the starting quarterback out and bring a backup quarterback to beat them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's my big thing is I could almost see them, especially so say everybody but Georgia loses, right? Say Michigan loses, Cincinnati loses, Oklahoma State loses, say everybody loses, right? And Bama, here's Bama with 2 losses. I could very easily see them saying, well, Bama's number 4 because they're the 4th best team, and them sneak in there. And I kind of agree with Anthony. If they do, I think that would be a little bit more of a money play than it would be actual ranking of teams. But
under your scenario, if everybody loses like that, you'll see Notre Dame in it.
True.
If Alabama beats Georgia, yes, I will be putting Alabama back in my top 4. But Cincinnati has to be number 1.
I'd still have them at 2. I think you would push Bama to 1, in my opinion. They're not going to give Cincinnati number 1 almost no matter what. They've had them outside the top 6 for most of these rankings because they don't trust them and they don't respect their schedule. So I
mean, the only big tier win they had
too. But
if you look at the big tier win they had, it was against Notre Dame at Notre Dame. That's the only big win they really Cincinnati has played.
Yeah, and you can even go into the argument, who has Notre Dame faced? Who is Notre Dame really faced to be at where they're at too?
Stanford.
And I mean, Notre Dame played most of the ACC teams too.
Yeah.
So. The under 500 ones. Yes.
Yes.
They need to just join the ACC and stop floating the ideas. I mean, they play ACC basketball.
They play ACC and everything else. But the only thing about the Notre Dame football is that they got to bring NBC into somehow because that's where they get all their money from is NBC during football season. NBC carries all Notre Dame sports.
Yeah.
Except for when it's national televised.
Yeah. And plus, really, I mean, you think about it, that's kind of the bad part with Notre Dame is you don't really have a lot of, kind of big rivalry, especially in the middle. Like Chris said, you're in Big Ten country. Like,
right.
You don't really have like an interstate rival with like Purdue or Indiana University. Like those are 2 kind of bottom feeder, organizations that, Purdue will get an upset against like, Ohio State or, number 2 ranked Iowa because, why not? But other than that, like they don't really have like a rival with them. They don't have a rivalry with like any of the Ohio teams. A little bit with Michigan State, maybe, but even then, I feel like that's a stretch.
Well, they have a rivalry with Navy because Navy is the one that actually saved Notre Dame from closing.
Yes.
So I think we've covered the power rankings. The last thing I really want to accomplish, let's go ahead and pick all 5 Power 5 championships. Who wins and why? Anybody want to lead that off?
Let's see. Hold on,
Everybody jump at once.
Say I'm getting the
You getting the brackets up?
yeah, I'm getting them actually up for like what the championship lines are.
Start with the Pac-12 is the easiest one.
Okay.
I think Oregon takes that one because they're gonna have
I think
revenge after Utah.
Yep. So it's Oregon versus Utah. Yeah, I'd have to say. Ooh, I don't know. Utah upset Oregon. So I mean.
Yeah, but Oregon's gonna be mad and they're gonna come out for blood.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I'll go with Oregon on that one too. And then we've got Baylor versus Oklahoma State for the Big 12.
I'm taking Oklahoma State for that one.
Let's see. That we've got obviously Georgia versus Bama for the SEC.
I'm taking Georgia.
I'm taking Georgia in a blowout.
And then
I'm with you.
And then the Big Ten, you've got Iowa versus Michigan.
I'm taking Michigan.
I'm gonna make some people mad.
I'm gonna tell you why I'm taking Michigan. Iowa only knows how to run. That quarterback ain't worth 2 cents when he throws the ball anyway. So you're gonna put Russian against Russian. But one thing about Michigan is they got a better passer.
And then you've got Pitt versus Wake Forest for the ACC.
Pitt, easily Pitt. I think it's a blowout.
Pitt will win if they can control Hartman and the wide receiving core. If Pitt defense can control Wake Forest's offense, Pitt's offense Wake Forest can control because Wake Forest don't play any defense except for you get to the red zone. So for Pitt, the key for Pitt is when they get to the red zone, they got to run power. If they can't get in by that, they're gonna have to score from outside the 20 because Wake Forest's red zone defense is pretty good.
Then I think if I saw right for what is it? The AAC, it's Cincinnati versus Houston for that division.
I've got Houston.
I got Cincinnati.
But I think it's going to be a very close game.
That's a matchup game. Houston's receivers are going to give Cincinnati's defense nightmares. And it's probably going to be like a 42-38 kind of game. And I like Cincinnati's offense, don't get me wrong. I trust their offense much more than I trust their defense. And I think it's a shootout.
I think that there will be 2 overtime matchups this week. I think that this is going to be one of them. I think Cincinnati is going to beat Houston by a field goal in overtime, 31-28.
Well, they got to do that in the first overtime because second overtime you got to go for 2 and then 2 points right on there. So if they don't do that in the first overtime, they ain't gonna see no more field goals after that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. So if I'm picking all 5, I'll just go in order. I'll give you scores because I've got all the scores that I think it's going to be. I'm looking at about 41-20 Georgia. I have Utah putting up 52 on Oregon, and Oregon only coming up with about 30. I don't think that's going to be a close game. Mad, yes, but Oregon got exposed twice this year. Once was by Utah. I think they get them again. Oklahoma State, I think they put up big numbers as well, but I'm thinking more about 35, and I think they beat Baylor 35-28. That's going to be a defensive matchup that people don't see coming because you think Big 12, you're like, oh, it's all offense. But those 2 teams have really good defenses for Big 12 standards. And I think Oklahoma State will find ways to get in the backfield constantly. So I picked them. Georgia. I did Georgia 41-20. I have Iowa beating Michigan, and I will explain myself here. Michigan is probably still drunk from the party they had after the Ohio State game. And practice is probably not going well this week, trying to sober up. And you come off a big win like that. I mean, your mind is not always where it should be. It's definitely not in the playbook, So I think they have the hangover, and I think Iowa beats them by a field goal. And I think it's like a 17-14 kind of game. These defenses are going to show. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of offense. And I'll say it first. If Michigan gets above 20 points, they win that game. I don't think Iowa can score more than that. Excuse me. Did I miss one? Oh, yeah. Pitt. I think Pitt puts up about 30, and I think they give up about 20 to Wake Forest, and they win. And, based on all those predictions with Houston beating Cincinnati, we're talking about chaos in the rankings for the next week. Trying to figure out who number 4 is, because you'll have Georgia, Oklahoma State as your 2 lock-ins. Maybe Notre Dame in that mix, but who would be your 4th team?
Yeah, and stay that Wake Forest game. If you go back and look at the 2 games they lost, was to North Carolina and Clemson, and both North Carolina and Clemson put pressure on Daniel Hartman. So that's going to be the key. If Pitt's defensive ends can put pressure on Hartman like they did against when Pitt and Carolina played against Sam Howell, then you're going to see Pitt. But I mean, then again, Pitt let down the guard in the second half, and Carolina came back, and it took them to 2 overtimes for them to beat them. So I mean, anyway you go look at it, Wake Forest, if you look what North Carolina did to them and you look what Clemson did to them and NC State did to them for about a half, putting pressure on Hartman, put it on, Hartman and stuff like that, you can see that. But your Iowa and Michigan game, yeah, we can see you talk about them being drunk over the Ohio State game, but the variation is the national championship, the college playoff could be in their minds too. So if that could get their attention, in practice. And I don't think they're having a bad day of practice. I think they're probably having a good week because they know that motivation is there to be the key. If they can win this game, they're in the college playoffs, and that's where Michigan wants to be. So,
yeah, I can kind of see that as one of those, like, have you ever seen one of those teams like they finally get that big break, they finally get that big win, and then they just use that momentum to carry them, kind of carry them through. Do I see Michigan going do I see them going far into the playoffs? Not necessarily. But do I see them actually kind of very handily beating Iowa? I very much so. I do agree with Chris. If you kind of look at Iowa throughout most of the year, offense has never really been their specialty, and that's never really been their specialty for the last few years that Iowa has really ever competed. You get good tight ends out of Iowa. You get good offensive linemen, and as a collective whole, they are great defensively. Now, individually, not as much, but collectively, they're a good defensive team. And I think Michigan will, because they do have an offense, I think Michigan will be able to capitalize on that, and they have a good defense because Michigan probably has 2 of the best pass rushers in the league right now, in Hutchinson and Jabo. On the other side. So I mean, that's going to be hard for Iowa to have to stop and compete against. So I actually have Michigan winning. I'm going to say 42-10. I'm going to have Michigan in a pretty major blowout over Iowa. Georgia, I have them winning 35-17. I do think it'll still be a blowout. I think Bama will be a little bit competitive, but I think it'll kind of be like how the Auburn game was. I think it'll be garbage time touchdowns more than anything as far as competing. Let's see. Pac-12. I do think Oregon comes out and wins, but I think they only win by 14. I'm going to say 35-21 Oregon. And then let's see, Big 12, Baylor versus Oklahoma State. I kind of agree. I think this will be a big defensive shootout. I think 38. No, not 38. I'm trying to do my math here and it sucks. 28-24, Oklahoma State winning. And then Pitt versus Wake Forest. I'm going to say 35-21 Pitt.
I like that.
So for me, I will have to go on the against everybody else here when the Pittsburgh Wake Forest game. I actually think that Wake Forest is going to win over Pittsburgh. You brought up the point about the Clemson and the NC State game. Now Clemson, they did score. They didn't score as much, but talking about the Wake Forest NC State game, even though they lost, they still put up 50+ points. I think that this is going to be one of those games that whoever loses, I think they're going to score at least 40, maybe 45. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. But Wake Forest, I have them end up winning it 49-43. Georgia, Alabama. Again, I'm not impressed by Alabama, to say the least. They beat Auburn, who played their backup quarterback, and it took them 4 overtimes to beat them.
Yeah. Not impressive.
Georgia wins this one, and it's going to be 45-17. Oregon, Utah. This is going to be another close game that I talked about I talked about Houston, Cincinnati already. That being an overtime game with Cincinnati winning by a field goal. This is another one that I can see it being an overtime game as well. But I do have Utah end up taking the L here, and Oregon winning by a touchdown. I'm going to go 27-20. And Baylor versus Oklahoma State, I have Oklahoma State winning that 31-20.
I think we're all in the same neighborhoods. It's going to be a good weekend.
Yeah, now Wake Forest and Pitt game. Wake Forest might have a little bit of advantage with crowd noise because it is playing in Charlotte, and Winston-Salem is only like 45 minutes to an hour away from Charlotte, so their fans will be there. Plus, you got some of the North Carolina fans will probably root for Wake Forest in that same location. So Wake Forest have a lot of fans in that stadium too, and Pitt fans, they don't travel as well, so even though they get 50% of the tickets. But yeah, I think we all in the same neighborhood. I don't see any way, anyhow, that it makeshift offensive line that Alabama's going to have to withstand that. I mean, even if you put a running back going down there and trying to stop Davis, Davis is going to run all over the dude because Davis is 300-some pounds, but he's a 4'2", 4'5" guy in speed at that weight. He's unstoppable. I mean, nobody has stopped him. I mean, they tried double team, they tried every kind of way that you could try to block the dude. And it still didn't. They tried to cut. One team tried to cut block him. It didn't work. He jumped right over top of him and went in there. So Alabama's got to figure a way to stop him. If they can't figure a way to stop him, and he gets that pressure up the middle, the defensive ends for Georgia are athletic, so they can match him with the speed. And the way the Georgia plays their defense is off that defensive tackle. Because if you watch Georgia's defense, their defensive line, all defensive ends, they come up the field, and because they know Davis is going to force them out of the pockets, they just keep driving up the field. And when they roll out, it roll right into their arms, either which way, right or left.
Well, also the cloud over Brian Robinson, if he even plays. I mean, Trey Sanders was not impressive against Auburn. He doesn't have any power behind him, and he's still coming back from that ACL injury, and I don't think he's 100% yet. So if Robinson doesn't go, I mean, you take that element out of their already shaky offense and inconsistent at times, you're putting a lot of weight on Bryce Young, and there could be more weight in the form of Jordan Davis laying on him during the game. So
And I'm not gonna lie. When I watch Sanders, Sanders keeps trying to do like what a lot of running backs and players are doing now. A lot of the hurdles, and it doesn't work. He was getting stuffed every time. It's like, man, you got to stop. You're not getting anything extra. Like if you're 1-on-1 and you get the hurdle, okay, I get it. But you're trying to hurdle like 3 dudes, and that ain't happening, my guy.
But if you look at it too, and you try to run away from Davis got the speed to track you down. I seen him one game. He tracked somebody going on a tall sweep. The next thing you know, the dude only got like maybe 1 yard, maybe. And then the next dude, he tried to go the other way. He stopped him behind 15 yards behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, the dude is a man beast. I mean, they're gonna have to throw a lot of stuff. I don't know what kind of wrinkles he can throw. And then when you talk about the running back, he got re-injured in the Auburn game, so he's not gonna be 100%.
I'm not even sure he plays. They probably won't mention that until Saturday morning. If I had a Heisman vote, it'd be Jordan Davis. I think he's that big of a difference maker. You know, you look at MVP, what it means. You know, you're the best player at your position by far. I think that factors, and he's that. He's by far the best nose tackle in college football.
Yep.
I think we've covered everything. You guys want to discuss anything else? What kind of Cheetos you eat for dinner? Anything like that?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well,
I think we covered pretty much everything.
Yeah, I think so. Wednesday, we have the college football playoff ranking show, blown coverage, same time, 7 Eastern. Hope you guys join us there. And I feel like this is a really good show.
Yeah.
I feel like we covered everything and did really well. I'm glad you guys made it.
Am I loud?
And,
Clear enough?
Yeah, it was.
Thanks for having us on.
It's definitely different.
yeah, it's not NASCAR. I'll give
It's
you
not.
that.
It's not.
Now, my favorite NASCAR driver is Dale Earnhardt, but he's dead. You know,
He's
rest
gone.
in peace.
Wow, look at that.
Well, everybody have a good evening.
You
Appreciate
too.
you guys joining. Tony Hollinsworth, thanks for joining. Ray Cruz, thanks for joining. I had a blast, man.
Reported that,
Yeah, I had a good time.
Houston
Yep.
hired Notre Dame.
Alrighty, y'all.
Brian Kelly.
Whole sports, all plays. Yeah. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.